Whatever it is, no one should have to encounter that kind of evil. Except you girls.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Ghostbusters 2016 director Paul Feig is back again to blame the audience for his own ineptitude.
What do we think of these Ghostbusters? Are they to be taken seriously?
He has a new film streaming called Jackpot, and decided the best way to market this is to attack the very people that could be actually putting money in his pocket. This guy has the marketing prowess of Ebola, and it's no surprise when his IMDb page resembles a list on how to break me under enhanced interrogation.
Let's go.
Let's go. Oh.
Did you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you.
Next time.
The word we're looking for is apocalypse.
This guy throws everything, including the sink out, as an excuse, even talking about the American political situation at the time. You know, clearly something that really impacts my life on a daily basis. That's my favorite part of it. If you look at the box office numbers, even if that was an impact, it would only hit a small percentage of the domestic number and wouldn't have changed the international one at all. Definitely a significant issue, mate. But no, the thing I care about is what really did it. That is basically this guy. Lack of ability to abstract, can't understand somebody else's position, and so he simply projects his thoughts and what he cares about onto other people. He'd definitely have trouble answering questions about breakfast. But that wasn't his only reason. In fact, this interview is wild. And the assumptions and beliefs of this not only highlight why Ghostbusters failed originally, but why Hollywood has as a whole, and how they will never fix it until people like this aren't in Hollywood. And those who align with the sentiment of the audience are. Although even from the title, it's like everyone went cannibal over the female Ghostbusters. You really have to be more careful and remember what you've said in the past. Do you not remember how many articles there were around 2016? Interviews you may have given, excuses you may have given previously. How about this one from Vanity Fair, where Paul Feig is over the misogynistic backlash to the Ghostbusters? We are never not referred to as the all-female Ghostbusters. This makes me crazy. Now, I did laugh when in the very first paragraph of the Vanity Fair article, they talk about how Paul Feig was oblivious to the mean, dark underbelly of the internet until he decided to make an all-female reboot of the Ghostbusters. If you're going to have him in an interview complain about being referred to as the all-female Ghostbusters, don't put it in your first pissing sentence.
Okay, so I don't know if it was a race thing or a lady thing, but I'm mad as hell.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Paul Feig is so concerned and so crazy as anybody referring to the Ghostbusters like that. Really weird when he does it in his own interview, isn't it? It's almost like that's how he perceived it, and then just decided to gaslight it about it as if it wasn't transparent. I just picked the best people for the job. I can't believe you'd suggest that I did this deliberately. Paul is very honest about how he sees the world in this interview, and well, probably guess. You have done more than any man alive to promote femme-led comedy. He says, yes, I love funny women. I think he missed a "the" and typoed an "a". I was an only child. I was close to my mum, who was very funny. There are already hints on, though.
Dad issues.
I lived next to 8 kids, 6 of whom were girls, and I relate more to their stories because they tend to be less aggressive and toxic. I was bullied as a kid, so I would run to the girls for solace. Is it any wonder that the Ghostbusters ended up like this?
Okay, you sweaty freaks, I'm about to save you from this ghost! Ah!
My pelvic floor is all over the place.
Why did you make 2016's Ghostbusters a full-blown reboot that ignored the original films? So he said a couple of people have already died, it's been 30 years, and he didn't want to do anything that would hurt the original movies. We are all aware, right, that making things attached to an IP that are bad hurt the original IP.
The power of pain compels you! Ow!
Rings of Power is damaging the Lord of the Rings brand. It won't taint how many people like the original movies, but the next time a Lord of the Rings property comes around, it will have people going, oh no, because the last thing you created was Rings of Power, and so that's what people will expect. But it's interesting that we get literally that paragraph of just, well, you know, I didn't want to damage the original movies, and without even anything tangentially related to it, immediately jumps into, the political climate at the time was really weird. Must have been on his mind, right? This is like asking someone if they like cheese, and they're like, I do like cheese, you know? But I remember Terminator Dark Fate, that was crap. Makes the reader feel like they've got whiplash, because with people running for office in 2016, there were a lot of dudes looking for a fight, and their obvious target was Ghostbusters. Obviously, that's innately related to who should lead the country. That's just common sense, folks. A Ghostbusters movie is integral to every leadership competition. Do you want to lead a chess championship? You better make a Ghostbusters movie, I'm telling you. When I was getting piled on Twitter, by piled on, I think he means replied to. I posted something publicly and other people talked. The horror. I'd go back and see who they were. So many of them were Donald supporters. And he, in his tiny little mind, immediately went, bigots! Oh, that's why they don't like my movie. They just don't want to be led by Clunge. That's why they don't like the Ghostbusters. This is one of the reasons why I think if you actually want to change things in Hollywood, you really have to take away the idea that any of it is art or that they're artists. It's the only way you're going to get people to remove their head from their arse. Oh, look, there's a world out here. Yeah! But then Mr. T came out against us. Then me making Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. You can't do that. And you can do that. It just won't be profitable. And now they're making Ghostbusters, but only with Clunge. What's going on? I love the fact that 8 years later, and in just 3 sentences, this one guy has left an indelible impression on this guy's psyche. He has been living in his head rent-free because he thinks he destroyed his movie in 3 sentences, one of which didn't even talk about him. This is the real-life Hollywood equivalent of Doctor Who walking up to somebody and going,
6 words.
Stop it.
6. Don't you think she looks tired?
But then he really loses it. That got everybody all upset. They went cannibal. Turned the movie into a political statement, as if to say, if you're pro-wench, you're going to see this. If not, then I didn't think it mattered that the main characters were women. But people brought a lot of baggage. This is just rewriting history. You are gaslighting. Oh, I didn't care at all. It wasn't me. It was all those people over there, those bigots, those supporters that actually caused all the issues. I didn't do anything. It couldn't have been Paul Feig. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Ghostbusters reboot criticism is vile, misogynistic crap. It was everyone else that was attacking you. It wasn't you doing it, was it? No. It wasn't a response to your action that you were complaining about. It was them actively attacking you. It wasn't that you did something that they were simply responding to. And you didn't like to be rebuffed by those that you seem to think are beneath you. The Bridesmaids directors hit back at detractors because he's terrible at marketing and doesn't realize they're his entire customer base. Feig also described his surprise at the online trolls. I just figure it's some whacked out teenager. An adult would never complain about this. Obviously, it's a child. You know, someone who's beneath me. Someone I can look down upon and therefore not listen to their justified criticism. Just all the T-supporters, it really is.
Holtzman, come on.
The hat is too much, right? Is it the wig or the hat?
Couldn't be that the media was kicking up all the problems and all the responses you were getting were simply reactions, responses to the attacks, trying to destroy the original movie because the only way that anybody could like yours is if you destroyed the original source material. Gaslight people that actually was crap all along. You can't like that now. That's not progressive, it's old. It's a great movie, but it's good because of all the things we hate now. And so we need to remove the good things from it and replace it with all the crap things that we want you to like instead. All the lesser, worse things. That's why there was all the articles attacking the original Ghostbusters. Oh, it's just full of bigot. You can't like that. If you like the original Ghostbusters, you're a bad person. Maybe that's why, Paul, you actually had responses where you said for the last 4 months people have been going, thanks for ruining my childhood. And like, I can't believe you're doing this. Why would that seems a bit over dramatic, doesn't it? I don't see how I could go and ruin your childhood. How's that within my power? Well, maybe it's because people were deliberately going out and trying to destroy the movie. Maybe the responses you were getting were responses to the things that they were being attacked with at the time that you seem to have coincidentally forgotten about. No, it was all this one guy. It's not as if I did anything. Can't hold me responsible for it. It might damage my future career.
You're a brilliant engineer. No one's better at quantum physics than you.
And these articles, by the way, I could literally be here all day with them. If you put the Ghostbusters with all the women, it is 100% less sexist than the original. 100%. Everything is removed. All of it. Because you see, actually, this has nothing to do with the actions or behaviors or anything. This is something which is innate within men. And it's literally we will call you this, so you have to get rid of those and replace them with people who, they don't have it. Much like the ability to be funny. And I've said many times, it's well known that Hollywood hire one type of person with one type of belief. And what happens if fixing that actually requires them to hire somebody that disagrees with them? What if the innate quality of entertainment is in the opposing belief or the opposing actions, the opposing statements? What if that's what you've got here? What if being funny requires you to be a bigot? I need to know. What do you do to comedy then? It would actually make a lot of sense if comedy isn't saying the thing that you're not allowed to say but is true. It would require a bigot to be able to say it. The person who doesn't want to listen to your new futuristic ideas that you made up last Tuesday. I also have this Atlantic article for one reason, that they actually bring up the term a sort of reverse sexism. I don't even know what that means. Oh, look, vitriol. We've been playing this game since 2016. The bigoted trolling that led to a new, underwhelming Ghostbusters. It's actually about Ghostbusters Afterlife. They're essentially saying that the first one was so amazing, but because people didn't like it, we got a worse thing made into existence. It did get a sequel though, didn't it? It did get a sequel. It's more than I could say for the 2016 one. The Ghostbusters reviews proved the reboot's point about bigotry. The reboot's point. I didn't think it mattered about the main characters. It's not the way everyone took the movie though, is it? They really seem to think that you were pushing a message, and they agreed with you. Ghostbusters is about the bros who hate it and the art of misogyny. It's an art now. Over the last 150 years of just constant societal degradation, people have got together, realised what the problem is, and mastered it. They have turned it into an art form. Those bigots got Ghostbusters wrong. Many men, including Donald, have protested against the Ghostbusters, but its casting may be the one thing the film gets right. One. Oh yeah, they hired the right. Terrible movie. Absolutely awful in every way, shape, or form. But the people in the main cast did have holes. That's the only thing it got right. And the BBC think that's a good point to make. We like absolutely nothing about this movie except that they don't have dangly bits. That was important. That was. The Ghostbusters was so bad, their supporters destroyed themselves without even getting into the article in their title paragraph before they utter the immortal words, "It was always crap." If it was always crap, why did you make a sequel, you silly tart? It's like, seriously, not a defense. If you're upset about female Ghostbusters, you probably had an awful childhood. No, darling, that was Paul. That's how he ended up making this crap. You even had the cast at the time coming out and attacking the people whose money they want to receive because they're marketing geniuses. You have no right to attack the audience. It's a terrible idea. You can do it. Do not do this if you want to make money. It's a very bad idea. Well, I think I should be able to attack and insult you, and then you just keep supporting. Why would anybody do that? If every time you walk through a door, you get punched in the face, you stop walking through the door, or you stop having a career.
No one should have to encounter that kind of evil, except you girls.
Because there are many ways to go with this, and that it quite simply, it doesn't matter what you think. There's a reason why all the questions and studies are analysing whether men really are funnier, because society knows it. Everybody has walked around and talked to people, and they realise. Science has even tried to go out and disprove it, like, no, actually, no, sorry. I think my favourite article when I was looking this up is from Petronella, who made it about why men are often funnier than women. And she even says this started as a guffaw until she found a dreary, unpopulated desert. And she really didn't want to believe this. That's why she describes herself as a maternal instinct, whereas men just have primeval competitive urges that produce blowhards, and how society was oppressing her, how they were denied the vote and power. But she is right that discretion doesn't make for comedy, and that men, particularly ugly ones, have devised comedy as a weapon due to its link with intelligence, and I think nothing showcases this better than the comedians dismiss ignorant study that claims men are funnier than us. And then the entire article, which found that 63% of men were supposedly funnier than the average woman, is just them going on to not understand what averages mean. I really think this is unnecessary. They could have done something progressive. Why can't they do something that lies about me? There are so many amazing male and female comedy shows. I don't know why they're trying to make a scientific fact that women aren't. They're not. It literally said on average, and you're like, oh, well, there can only be one winner. Averages can't be correct. I can only understand absolutes because my IQ is 80, which might be why I'm not funny. Even that study says it might be societal and evolutionary because it helps them get laid. I mean, seriously. Quite simply, ladies, I'm not sure how offended you should be. All that to say, you're just wrong, mate. And your movies prove it. But this isn't about reality. This is about how he feels. Because when he was a kid, someone bullied him, and he's just held that chip on his shoulder his entire life, and now just sees everyone as aggressive and toxic, and himself unable to compete in that environment. So he goes to actually hang around with weaker people, because he thinks in the hierarchy of power, he can dominate those. That's how it seems to me from this interview. Now, he goes on to also talk about how, do you think comedy can still be laugh out loud funny with so many restrictions on what is and what is not allowed to say? Do you believe that muzzling topics restricts the scene? Obviously. The entire point of comedy, the place of where the funny is at that line of, you shouldn't be saying this. It's something that's simultaneously recognized as true, but also that you're not supposed to be pointing out. That's the funny bit. I can't believe he said that. This is why we have things such as, it's funny because it's true. But there he goes, I'm not in the school of thought that thinks political correctness has killed comedy. No, because you agree with the politics. You're a clap comedian. Yes, that was funny because I agree with it.
Okay, I don't know if it was a race thing or a lady thing, but I'm mad as hell.
It's not about whether something is a truth that people aren't allowed to say, so there's a tension that's relieved there, which is the joke. No, instead it's, I agree, me finding that funny shows my virtue. I am signaling to the tribe that I agree. Oh, it's a disgusting kind of comedy. My only goal is to make people laugh and hopefully not offend anybody in the process.
Holtzman, come on.
The hat is too much, right? Is it the wig or the hat?
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Notice that political correctness has not killed comedy, but I hope I don't offend anybody. What offends people is making fun of things people can't change. No, it isn't. Offense is a decision by the person, so you can literally choose to be offended by anything. It doesn't matter whether they can change it or not, even if they can change it. Let's say you've got a massive whale on a beach, and somebody says, I can't believe Petter hasn't come along to roll that back in the ocean. That's something they can change about themselves, but they choose not to. The joke's still funny, though.
Get out of my friend, Ghost!
Also, there's still no reason you shouldn't joke about these things. You can't change it. So, it's a joke. The entire point of the joke is the spirit it's given in. This is why you need to be able to take a joke. It means take it in the spirit that it's given. For instance, I don't think any of these four people are really funny because, honestly, they need to smile more. I also like how he says, if you're making jokes about extreme characters and the human condition, you can get away with a lot of stuff. I like the idea of needing to be able to get away with comedy. It's like, no, I mean, of course, political correctness hasn't killed comedy. You can still make jokes about this tiny little thing over here that you might be able to get away with. What happens when that gets closed down, mate? What happens when that gets closed down? Oh, it's constantly shrinking, but there's still an area that I might be able to survive in. What a puss. Then he goes on to talk about a US adaptation of Extras, like they did with The Office. And honestly, Office and Extras, not my kind of comedy. But he does talk about one of the differences between British and American comedy, where British audiences enjoy taking the piss out of pompous lead characters who aren't lovable. Kind of the foundation of this channel, isn't it?
We have a gift. We see what no one else is willing to see.
And there's a lot more to the comedy differences, including things like high context cultures versus more literal cultures. But I did find it interesting that when he was talking about The Office, they found out they had to make the main character a nicer person just so Americans could put up with him. Because how else are they supposed to root for him, right? But the best thing is, even this guy knows that that's what you have to do in American entertainment. And yet all Hollywood is pumping out is dislikable hero after dislikable hero, despite the fact that people in Hollywood know that their own audience hates that kind of thing, because they've already tried it before. And I thought that was interesting. When he's not making excuses for his own failures, he actually does seem to know elements of what goes into making a show for different audiences, which is insightful. So why then, when it comes to his own shows, does he seem completely incapable of realizing what the problem was? Because there are major problems with other things, such as, what's your advice for a comedy writer trying to break into the industry? And his first response is, write about situations and relationships you've been in, insecurities you've had. Does this remind you of anything? Self-inserts all over the industry, because this is what people are doing. As new people have been hired into the industry, suddenly they think everything's about them, but they haven't had loads amount of experience. They haven't gone out into the world and experienced big, massive things. Instead, the only things they can talk about is, well, I was in New York and worked at a coffee shop on my laptop, and I had a broken relationship because I'm a miserable cow. And I do think that this attitude comes from his first answer to the first question of who he spends his time around. It led him into a way of thinking that was very solipsistic. It was all about him, rather than an objective view of the world. Rather than writing from the male perspective, instead, no, it's definitely sort of a femme-coded thing he's doing when it's just about my relationships and me going out in the world. It's like, quite frankly, your life just isn't interesting. Nobody cares that you went out on a Saturday night and got pissed. The situations that you've had in Hollywood just aren't fun. Oh, well, to get that script, I was just on my knees because I needed a new writing. It's just not an interesting story. And it doesn't matter. It's like, well, if you went through a crazy relationship, put that in a dystopian sci-fi epic so you've got more than just the actual things that inspired you. Or you could ignore the fact that you have terrible taste in men and instead write about a sci-fi thing that has nothing to do with you because you're irrelevant. We find out that he doesn't like jokes.
That stuff went everywhere, by the way, in every crack. Very hard to wash.
Because audiences are very aware of when they're being told a joke. I've seen late night Saturday TV over there where there's just a big monologue and people are told to clap. Or The Big Bang Theory where they have a laugh track so that the audience know when to clap. It's so funny, you have to be told to laugh. But this is a problem with the people writing the jokes. It's that the jokes aren't funny. It's not a problem with jokes. Jimmy Carr will stand on a stage and say nothing but jokes, and they're funny because they're actually good. And then he gets even weird. I think think this comes from YouTube. What? People not finding jokes funny comes from YouTube because you watch real people reacting to real events. So if you've written a comedy that feels silly, the audience won't like it because they're used to seeing the real people on YouTube. It's like he can't understand that other people are real people that have their own lives. So he can't imagine them going out into the street and having actual meetings with people. All I can imagine of them, because he's imagining them as his customers, is that they just sit down in front of a screen and watch media. So they won't have normal experiences of meeting people and reacting to situations. The only place they can get them from is YouTube. You've never seen a real person or a real event unless you've been on YouTube. Paul Feig is the perfect example of Hollywood because this was 8 years ago. And the problems of Ghostbusters then are the problems of Hollywood today. And yet, despite all of this time, all the time he's had for reflection, the time for any psychic wounds he may have had to have healed up and actually look at this from an objective perspective and realize, yeah, I was the problem when that was me, that was a mistake. Still, complete inability to comprehend what happened. This isn't like a viral marketing thing where we piss people off and then they're gonna go and watch my movie. That doesn't happen. Nobody watches a movie because the director pissed you off. This is simply being mentally incapable to understand the way life works. He only seems to be able to view it from his perspective. And so in 8 years, he's still viewing it from his perspective. Oh, it wasn't me. It's not what I wanted. It was all that guy over there. He said something and that just mind controlled you. Kind of implies that when people say things to him, they mind control him. I just do what I'm told, so you must as well, right? You can't think for yourself. He ignores all the media that attack the fans, just like he did, because they're supporting him, saying things that he agrees with. But he remembers what concerned him at the time, that there was a guy running for office, and he said 2 sentences about my movie, and that's why it failed. And despite the fact that that only influences half of America at best, and is entirely irrelevant to the international audience. But he suffers from the same thing many people do. No, I find them funny. You know, these people are my friends, and I find my friends funny. Of course you do. That's why they're your friends. But it doesn't mean they're funny objectively. It doesn't mean they're funny to a general audience. And it's the general audience that matters. Have a load of people going, I can't believe this study said that men on average are funnier than women. There are good female comedians. I'm like, yes. We're talking about on average though, aren't we? But if you're incapable of understanding averages, then you're not going to be funny. And it might be time that Hollywood hired back some of the people that they disagreed with in the past to come back and tell them why they're failing. Because on their own, they seem to have no idea. And they still give interviews now that read as if they were interviews from 2016. Because they have learned nothing in 8 years and they're still making movies. And nothing evolves unless it's the fittest that survive. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe. More videos like this in the future and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.